bullet and turned onto Louise, now on Satakoy at 60 to 70 miles per hour. And now we'll see what happens. We'll see if they put it back into pursuit mode. There were about 4 units right behind him as he was speeding down Roscoe, and now 2 more joining the pursuit. But it looks like they may very well put this back into pursuit mode, Mark. Yeah, you're right about that. So far, no word. Unclear how many people are inside there. Looks like a smaller cab, but certainly enough room for a back seat back there. And sure enough, that was what it was last night. We had those 5 people. Incredible. But yeah, right now it just appears to be the driver. We haven't gotten a really clear shot through the windshield yet, but you saw just a moment ago crossing over those double yellow lines, almost going into oncoming lanes of traffic. Now, obviously, traffic is very light as we make our way into Reseda along Satakoy. Very quiet streets this evening, but so far he has still refused to pull over, and we'll see if they maybe start discussing other alternative options here. In a case like this where it is late at night, considering the time of day, they may just let him continue the joyride temporarily, maybe let the adrenaline come down a little bit and then close in on him again. But if the driving continues to be this erratic and he starts to get a little more aggressive, look at him going around this semi-truck, that will amp things up. And it looks like, sure enough, he is acting pretty aggressive. So they may set up for a spike strip if he continues straight down Satakoy. If they have an opportunity, if there are units ahead that have the opportunity, they may set up for that spike strip. Or if he slows down, they can close that gap and maybe even think about a pit maneuver. But right now, he appears to be somewhat animated in that driver's seat. Yeah, 3540s. Yeah, sorry. He's just barely slowing down. That was a red light right there that he just blew through, but he is at least slowing down for them. So he's been pretty lucky with the green lights. That, I think, was the first red light that I've seen that he blew through, but he did slow down just a little bit to make sure there was no cross traffic. But again, just the way he's behaving, you get the impression maybe he's got an idea of where he wants to take this. But look at this, into oncoming lanes, maybe into, what is that, a gas station route? Well, yeah, it looks like maybe... no, it's going to be into a shopping center. LAPD following through the parking lot at Satakoy and Winnetka Avenue. And now in front of a laundromat coming around here, maybe looking for an outlet. Not sure if that's a fast food restaurant there. Yeah, coming out of Keswick. And that's going to put him on a very residential street where he is continuing now to push the pedal to the metal. Now doing about, well, only about 30 miles per hour here, but it is a very narrow street nonetheless, and is right behind, yeah, no passenger, as we could see through that windshield, at least in that front passenger seat. So just appears to be the driver, Mark, now taking us into Winnetka on Keswick, kind of zigzagging his way through here, and you now get the impression that he's making this up as he goes along, and they have put this back into a hot pursuit. So 4 units, a primary, a secondary, and a supervisor, as well as that backup unit, a full pursuit package, now into oncoming lanes again, a wide right turn over those double yellow lines, and the LAPD airship calling the location from above. Now, we don't see that night sun just yet, but they may very well turn that back on as well. Right now, doing about 50 miles per hour down Satakoy once again. So we made our way off of Satakoy for a brief moment through a shopping center for really what appears to be a random turn into that shopping center. No reason at all. And now he is back on Satakoy. Yeah, that's usually just the beginning of the story, right? Because you would think that if it was just as simple as a misunderstanding, then they would just pull over. But obviously, there is much more to this story, and we'll see. Look at he's pulling into maybe an alleyway. Okay, so he's in a very narrow alleyway off of Loma Verde Avenue in Canoga Park. That appeared to be another random turn there, but as you mentioned, you got to wonder what else is going on. What other crimes have been committed? What is he associated with? Is there a warrant out for his arrest? Something is preventing him from just simply pulling over and giving himself up here. Whatever it is, it's probably not worth it, but in his mind right now, it is worth it. He thinks he has an opportunity to maybe outrun police or maybe just enjoying his final few moments of freedom if it is indeed a joyride. Just based on the behavior behind the wheel, you could even make a rationale for a possible driver who is maybe under the influence and is just, unclear how he wants to end the night here. So there's the airship right overhead, the night sun back on him, and we still have those 4 units easily able to keep up with him. The good news as we continue through the valley here, not much traffic so far, but it just takes one wrong turn, one wrong move, somebody crossing the street, and then it could be trouble. But right now, he is, just doing about maybe just a little over the speed limit. Once he gets into these residential neighborhoods, that's when you start to really perk up, and hopefully that night sun will give a warning to anybody down there who maybe even is just, has taken out the trash or whatever. Now is the time to stay inside and out of the way of LAPD. More random turns, a slow crawl through this alleyway, and now he gasses it. So you almost get the impression maybe he's looking for a spot to dump the vehicle and then, run on foot. But right now he's not stopping. He's kind of playing a game of cat and mouse with these random turns, doing a big circle just off of Saticoy. So we're still not far from Saticoy. We've made our way from Van Nuys to Canoga Park, and he's just basically doing loops. If he establishes a pattern, that could present an opportunity for that spike strip. But you saw he slowed down in the alleyway. They pulled up right behind him, just a few feet behind him, and then he just gassed it. You can see that smoke coming from the rear tires as he gassed it, pretty much for no reason, just toying with these officers, essentially.
Right, and now he's pulling into another parking lot.
Another strip mall. This is going to be off of Sherman Way. An empty shopping center. He's going to come out the other side, and look at that. There's a black and white waiting for him on the other side there. No spike strips ready, but probably just happenstance that officer happened to be there. In any event, he is now on Sherman Way, just off of Millwood, continuing to pick up a little bit of speed here. Again, still has that airship overhead, as you mentioned, Mark. He is not going to get away here. He is, it's just a matter of, he's on borrowed time, essentially. He's not going to get very far in that vehicle. LAPD has endless resources to bring this to an end eventually, and he just does not appear to have the equipment to really get very far, especially with the helicopter right over him. Once the helicopter's overhead, the percentage of pursuit suspects that actually get away drops dramatically. So it really becomes a matter of time, and officers always have the time on their side, and he only has the gas that's left in that tank. So he could take this as long as he wants, but eventually it will come to an end, just a matter of how he wants to end it.
Right, and hopefully it will end peacefully and without an accident, which is the aim of everybody involved here, at least the police that are pursuing him. They want it to end without an accident, without anybody getting hurt. and by
Yeah.
bringing that suspect into custody, which is, of course, the usual result of these pursuits, and we hope it ends that way too. Good thing, of course, these streets fairly empty of drivers and pedestrians at this hour of the night in Southern California as we look live at Canoga Park and this police pursuit that is winding its way through the San Fernando Valley. This red GMC.
That's exactly right. And at least at one point, they were willing to just put it into tracking mode to bring the temperature down and see if that changed the behavior behind the wheel. Instead, it actually amped things up, which is very unusual. I think once that helicopter, you heard that helicopter overhead and continued the pursuit regardless, and then the pursuit was back on. So now you wonder, well, maybe they'll try it again, maybe give him a little more space and have him calm down just a little bit. You can see, though, every time we push in on that driver's side window, he appears to almost be making hand gestures out the window, but very animated, very agitated, and once again going much faster now on Canoga Avenue. You know, I'd rather see him on these wider streets than these residential streets. Once he pulls into those homes, you get just a pit in your stomach, because obviously anything can happen, and because the streets are so narrow, if he speeds through those streets, anything can happen. But here we are now back on Saticoy, going the opposite direction. So we've made our way from Van Nuys, mostly on Saticoy. Now we're going in the opposite direction, eastbound on Saticoy, doing just about the speed limit. And all of those turns that we just saw in the last couple of minutes, weaving through those neighborhoods, all appear to be completely aimless, completely random, just making this up as he goes along, buying time, which is really the only thing he's got, and not much left, quite frankly.
Yeah, you do see a lot of cars out there. Just in that one, oh, there was an attempt to do a spike strip right there. It failed. He saw it coming and turned left down the alley.
That's right, and I think that's exactly right. Yeah, he saw the spike strip, just like when he slows down sometimes through these alleyways, they pull up right behind him, and he sees them getting close, and then he speeds up. So he's just, again, it's a game for him. It really turns into you know, a game of cat and mouse, as we say in the business, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. An older model pickup truck, not really capable of much, but he is certainly pushing it here and now, almost coming close with that cross traffic there. He's on he's in an alleyway that does not have a name, but he is just about a block south, or a half block south of DeSoto Avenue. To give you an idea of where we are, you can see the helicopter making those tight orbits around him as he speeds through this alleyway. He's going to come out on potentially Blythe Street, I believe. Another narrow Strathern Street, another narrow residential neighborhood. It'll put him back on DeSoto Avenue, and those units again right behind him, ready to continue this. But he is just making these turns up as he goes along.
And at this point, the speeds aren't that great, aren't that high, as he just continues just driving. But again,
yeah, the closer they get, the faster he goes, which is why, which may be why they originally put it into tracking mode. And my gut tells me they may even do that again. He just blew through another red light here, but not extremely fast. He did slow down for it, blew through the red light. They're going to go through that red light with him. And he is, as you mentioned, kind of slowing down just a little bit.
Right, and he's on a big major street now, and that's good news for the police, because the likelihood of somebody being out in the middle of that is less. And when it's a big wide street, there's more room for error if he starts losing control or starts driving more erratically than he has.
I'm noticing, Mark, that night sun is off again, and those units, as we pulled out there, you saw those units pulling back maybe about a block away at most. But I wonder if that watch commander has put this back into tracking mode, which is what we've been discussing here. I think that might be the case, as we now see a little bit less pressure applied. He's not being chased at a close distance, although surely he's aware of their presence, obviously. Just a quick look in the rearview mirror, and he knows what he's up against here. But that helicopter's turned off the night sun, and I believe we'll know for sure if we see those front sirens turned off. You know, even when it's in tracking mode, you'll see the sirens and the lights from the rear of those patrol cars, but those front sirens will be off. So if he looks in the rearview mirror, he may see the black and whites, but he won't see the flashing lights, potentially, if that is the case. Now turning on to Nordoff Street, and it looks like they're still flashing pretty good, but you see them giving him a wide berth here as he makes his way now through Chatsworth. Copy. ICOM. So we're still on Nordoff, and what you've noticed here, he's coming up on Corbin Avenue, making a right turn there, and he's making these wide right turns for no apparent reason. That wasn't even exceptionally fast, but a wide right, still in purview of LAPD here. But you saw as they pulled back once again, just like we saw earlier when we first joined you with this pursuit, he pushed it. He started going much faster. Normally, when they pull back and they give them a little bit of breathing room, typically we see the drivers kind of slow down a little bit. Their behavior starts to normalize somewhat gradually. But in this case, he starts to, I don't know if he thinks he's got an opportunity when he sees the lights go off, that he thinks he can outrun them. But in any event, you see him now going much faster. Not quite extreme speeds, but just over the speed limit. Fortunately, as we've been saying, not a whole lot of traffic out here in the valley on a Tuesday night, but continuing southbound on Corbin into oncoming lanes of traffic now for no reason. Well, I guess he has that car there, but really no reason at all to go into oncoming lanes there. Did he see some spike strips possibly? Yeah, some spike strips on the corner there, and he goes in the opposite direction. So there were some spike strips on the northwest corner. He made a southbound turn, or actually a eastbound turn onto Roscoe. He is now going back east on Roscoe, which, by the way, Mark, is exactly where he came from. We first started on Roscoe, eventually onto Louise, down to Saticoy. Now he took Saticoy back onto well, we've weaved our way through the valley, essentially ending back over on Roscoe and Tampa Avenue. If he continues eastbound, that'll take him right past Van Nuys Airport, which was quite convenient for us as we were getting ready to take off and follow this pursuit. We saw him the minute we lifted off from our hangar. You can see all of the flashing lights zooming right past the Van Nuys runway on Roscoe, heading west. Now we're going east, again in the opposite direction, and one has to wonder, considering that by my estimation, I believe it's LAPD's Foothill Division that initiated the pursuit. Now that would be the northeast corner of the valley. Think of neighborhoods like Pacoima, Artesia, that area. That may be where he wants to end up. He may weave his way back into an area where he's more familiar with, if that is indeed the case. That's where it started. No guarantees that's where it'll end, but if history is any indication, it's a good possibility he may take us right back to that general part of the valley. In any event, continuing eastbound on Roscoe Boulevard through Northridge here, and in another few lights, he will pass Van Nuys Airport, Mark.
Much longer. I mean, it can't be getting that. He does this, you know, the best thing that can happen for this person is that he ends up getting arrested.
Right.
You know, that's the best thing that can happen. The worst is that he causes an accident or gets in an accident or some sort of a use of force situation by the LAPD. But he can kind of dictate what happens. He's in charge, really, of how this all goes as he runs a red light. That's one of several that we've been witnessing.
Yep.
The LAPD is responding as best they can, although I want to point out we do have video from earlier of a spike strip that they deployed not far from here where they tried to get him a little while ago. You're looking at on the right side of your screen there, but he saw it coming and made a quick left turn down an alley. There has since been at least one other attempt a couple of minutes ago where that one also apparently failed. So all four tires are still fully inflated. Although it looks like every time he makes a right turn in particular, his right rear tire spins and starts to smoke.
Yeah, I almost wonder if he's maintaining control through some of those turns. He is back on, he's on, look at this. Okay, so he sees some traffic up ahead, and that's when he crosses over the double yellow lines through this red light again. We're going to hold back here as some traffic lands at Van Nuys Airport. What I was about to say was that the challenging part for LAPD is that because it's a cold-plated vehicle, which essentially means that the license plate does not match the vehicle description that they're looking at here, they do not know much about the suspect. They are working in the blind, not exactly sure who or what they are dealing with inside that truck. Is he armed? They have no idea. Is he wanted for a violent crime, or is this something more of a misdemeanor that he's afraid of getting caught with, or is he just out for a joyride, or maybe he's out on parole or something like that? We just don't know. And again, is he under the influence? So many possibilities. But they when they have a cold-plated vehicle, they lack the intelligence to prepare for some of those alternate endings. So they have to be ready for anything, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to follow this through, and I don't think they're going to let him go. I mean, anything's possible, but I don't think they're going to let him go here. You saw him there for a moment, just about 60 or 90 seconds ago, doing about 80 miles per hour on Roscoe, so at least double the speed limit as he saw a straightaway there. And now we are on the east side of the airport, coming up on the 405. Now that'll be another thing. If he decides for some reason to get onto the freeway, that's always the preferable place to continue a pursuit for law enforcement, because it's just much safer, especially at this time of the night. So we'll see if he decides, as he passes the Bud plant here, he's going to come up on the 405, under the 405, no signs of getting on the freeway, and he stays committed to Roscoe. So no freeway for him, at least yet. He does have an opportunity still technically if he made a left turn there, but he's continuing under the 405 and now coming out the east side of the freeway. So I was hoping maybe, and I'm sure they were hoping, that he would turn onto the freeway, but instead we are now on a little bit of a busier section of Roscoe because we're so close to the freeway here, coming up on Sepulveda, where traffic is just a little bit more moderate, and he's actually in the turn lane. So is he going to just go around this traffic or make a turn onto Sepulveda? It looks like a left turn, northbound Sepulveda, heading into North Hills.
All right, northbound Sepulveda. It's a commercial area. It is a commercial / industrial, it would appear. Not a lot of business. There's businesses there, but most of them we would assume are closed. And that's good news, although he's running a lot of red lights. He doesn't seem to be slowing down too much. At 53 miles an hour, going through a red light at that speed, very, very dangerous, even at this time of night. Yeah, there's not a lot of traffic, but there is some. We are seeing other vehicles out there. He's gone through some cross traffic. There's cars there as he goes through another red light, and it looks like he's speeding up too. We're on Sepulveda, northbound at Parthenia, North Hills. This pursuit continuing. The LAPD has initiated it to begin with, and they have been the agency on it throughout. They are behind him now at some distance, a little more than a block or so, hoping he'll slow down. He does, and then he speeds back up. Not exactly in tracking mode, although it looks like the night sun is not on him. Is that correct?
So the night sun is off. This is now clearly, by my estimation, now in tracking mode. But there is some discussion about just terminating the pursuit. So they've done the calculus. Maybe they know more than we do. And maybe they have other means of catching up with them later. But that is at least under discussion as we continue north on Sepulveda Boulevard here. So I didn't think they would let him go, especially considering, you know, that there's not a whole lot of people in danger here, but anybody's in danger, of course, as you have somebody driving so erratically, especially speeding through those red lights. And I guess they may have, okay, yeah, they have just given the go-ahead to terminate the pursuit, even as he blows through yet another red light at Sepulveda and Plummer. So they are going to terminate the pursuit, Mark, but that does not mean that the helicopter is going to go home. The helicopter, I believe, will probably stick with it a little bit more unless there is other business in the city to tend to. That airship has the ability to follow him home or wherever he ends up, and then they could, again, catch up with him at a later point in time. But for now, they have terminated this pursuit, and he does appear to have somewhat slowed down to a more reasonable speed, though still doing about 60 miles per hour on Sepulveda.
Okay, so if they've terminated the pursuit, any number of factors, I assume, could have gone into that. Number one, of course, being safety. Number two could be just the allocation of resources. There might be other things going on that they need these officers for. They may have decided that this crime, whatever they know that this person has done, is not worth committing the resources that they have thus far to it. They don't know what else he may have been involved with, but they have no way of knowing until they catch him, and there's other things they need to get to.
Yeah, he's still going really fast, but as we widened out there for a second, you can see there's no ground units anywhere near him, at least that are visible by my eye. And so it is purely up to the chopper. I want to confirm, is he still overhead there, Chris? He is. So the airship is continuing to track, but those ground units have pulled away as we make our way now under the 118 freeway. So he's continuing north through the valley, and sure enough, if he continues in this direction, Mark, my suspicion will have been correct, and he will end up back in LAPD's Foothill Division. Now coming up on Mission Hills, continuing on Sepulveda, doing above the speed limit, but other than that, he is somewhat composed and not quite as stressed as he was earlier when those units were right behind him. So that airship likely will take this to the end. We could continue along with him here, but barring any other dangerous moves here, it may just turn out to be another one that got away.
Yeah, maybe he got away, but you know, if as long as the airship's over, yeah, temporarily, as you are correct in pointing out, because the airship's overhead and they can follow him, and if he pulls over and stops somewhere, they can of course direct. Whoa, that was close. They can direct.
Another red light.
Yeah, they can direct traffic or direct units to his position. But we need to point out, he has blown through just in this last 3 or 4 minute span. He's blown
three in a row, and now getting on the freeway. Yeah.
Right. He's blown through a number of red lights. Now he's getting on the 405. Which direction is he getting on?
Northbound 405. Northbound 405, which is going to end here, and will put him in about a mile onto the 5 freeway, which has about 3 to 4 miles of valley left before he ends up in the Newhall Pass. And so my suspicion, again, these are just educated guesses, is that he will likely take this into the Sylmar area or somewhere thereabouts and get off the freeway at one of these exits. But right now, continuing northbound 405, making our way into Sylmar, coming up on the 5 freeway now. And I think that overpass will, yeah, that'll now put him on the 5. Again, nobody behind him, just the airship overhead is going to follow these last few moments of this pursuit.
All right, and so the question becomes, would the CHP become involved here if this was basically, I don't know if this is what you'd call an infraction or a misdemeanor that occurred in LAPD's territory. Would CHP get involved in this if no LAPD units are pursuing?
CHP will certainly be notified. They'll be given the option, and then they will decide based on their resources whether they want to give it a shot. What's so interesting about this is that if he continues, look at him, he's signaling to get off of the 5 freeway as I predicted. But the funny part about that is that if he would have continued northbound on the 5 freeway, that would have taken him into the Santa Clarita Valley, out of LAPD's jurisdiction, and even the helicopter probably would have turned around, and he probably would have, he probably would be done. But he is now off the freeway, in the San Fernando Valley still, and he is still in LAPD's jurisdiction, giving that airship reason to continue following him. So it's interesting when you think about it, but if he would have stayed on the freeway, he probably would have gotten away, left LAPD's jurisdiction and taken himself into Santa Clarita Valley, but instead he's now off the freeway, back into LAPD's Foothill Division, right where this all started earlier this evening, about an hour ago, and that airship still hovering overhead.
He has stopped at a red light, which we, I guess, should maybe congratulate him for. I don't know. Or is it a red light? Maybe, because it looks like it's red in the other direction. I can't tell.
Looks like it's red. He's at a red. Okay. There's a green light allowing that traffic onto the southbound 405. Mm-hmm. He's in the right lane, on the northernmost lane of Roxford Street. And we'll see he basically is fixing to go north on Sepulveda if he goes straight. He could either go north on Sepulveda, or he could pull in front of all of those 2 white cars and end up back on the freeway. But I don't think he's going to do that. He looks like he's on the path towards Sepulveda. There's no right turn he can make here. He's just waiting for the light to turn, and we'll see what he does here. Crawling through the intersection and going with the traffic, and now CHP
right behind him.
Is right behind him. So CHP was offered the pursuit, and they've decided to check this guy out. And now he is now entering their jurisdiction. So CHP is going to have some fun with this, if you will, and see what this guy is up to. He's now southbound 405. They've got a couple of patrol cars ready to engage if the go-ahead is given, and they have a wide open, empty freeway to either put this into a pursuit mode once again, or just track his movements and follow him to his final destination. So not what you would have thought, and in fact I'm a little bit surprised that CHP took the bait, but hey, why not? If they've got the resources, and this guy's running through these red lights, why in the world not? So he now has 3 CHP units southbound, and it looks like he's taking the 405. Southbound 405, Mark.
All right. Well, you know what? When they know about a crime, they have a duty to investigate,
sure do.
And that is what's at play here. And you never know. You never know what you're facing. You don't know necessarily why the wrong plates are on that vehicle. It could be a misdemeanor, but it could be used to cover up a felony as an attempt to evade detection on something that this person has done that would be much, much, much more serious. We don't know.
That's exactly.
Neither do the police.
Wow, look at that. Was that, yeah.
Okay, he just got off.
So he got off. The 2 continued. But he still has, that's still a black and white behind him, right, Rob? Yeah. 1 CHP unit right behind him as he gets off at Rinaldi. And that's interesting. That's really interesting. Well, you're so right, Mark. You know, it could be a very minor crime, or it could be a very, very serious crime. We just don't know. And so that's reason enough to follow this through, especially considering that they have the available resources to do so. So here you have at least 1 CHP unit. If we widen that a little bit, is there anybody else, Rob, behind him? Just the 1. So that's interesting. Just the 1 black and white behind him. and the LAPD airship overhead, now westbound on Rinaldi.
Right, and we should point out the CHP unit is not in pursuit mode here. You don't see any red lights. You don't see or any indication that he has lit up this car. He's just following behind him, and right now he's on surface streets, which is not his area of operation. So if
My
he does,
hunch,
go ahead.
so here's what we're looking at here. If he continues driving within the speed limit, within the parameters of the law, and stops going through these red lights, without any backup, it is less likely that that CHP unit will engage in a pursuit by himself. However, if he starts to blow through these red lights unnecessarily, that will change the equation. So that primary unit right there has not seen him break any laws that we know of just yet. At least for the last several minutes, he's been somewhat behaved ever since he got onto the 405. And now he is off back into LAPD's jurisdiction in their Mission Hills division. And he's actually going relatively slow, whether that's because he sees that CHP unit behind him or he's just more composed is anybody's guess. But he's now doing about the speed limit, westbound Rinaldi. And if that continues, I would venture to say that that CHP unit will likely let him go. But, you know, it's anybody's guess because one wrong move and all of a sudden, is there more pulling in? He made a turn, so he let him go. Yeah, he let him go. He followed him off the freeway. Again, those CHP units are primarily responsible for state roads and interstate highways, and so he's going to head back towards the freeway. The airship is still overhead, and a different unit is now a ways back. Is that we don't know if it's CHP or LAP. It's the same guy. Okay, so that CHP unit pulled way back.
All right.
But still continuing in his direction. But you see that truck now about 2 or 3 blocks ahead of him. LAPD still overhead, and now the driver really just cruising down Rinaldi Street.
All right, so our coverage will end here. It appears the law enforcement has lost interest in this pursuit, and it is no longer a threat to the public, it would appear, because he has slowed down. Our coverage will end now. We thank you very much for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow night on ABC 7. Good night.